listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good morning, Miami Dolphins fans, and how are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Tuesday, December the 17th. I am your host, Tom Ernest. On today's show, we are going to do a little bit of cleanup from the day after the Houston disaster and provide updates on injuries, particularly to Grant Dubose as well as Jaylen Waddle. And the big topic of the show that will take majority of the show is, where do we go from here as a franchise of this beloved team that drives us insane year in and year out? But before we get into any of that, I want to give a big shout out to everyone listening over at FinHeaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, everyone listening over at the Facebook group, I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan, run by the great Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure to check out the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook group. Also, from our sponsor of today's show is Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Miami Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. And Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. Let's get into the updates on the injuries to some players for the Miami Dolphins. Clearly, the big one was the Grant Dubose injury that was suffered early in the third quarter on a brutal hit as he was trying to receive a pass from Tua. Grant Dubose, the update with him, if you haven't heard, he has movement in all extremities, but he's currently still hospitalized in Houston. With the likelihood that once doctors clear him, he will go back to South Florida and will report to the team facility to speak to team doctors. And Mike McDaniel first, when asked about it, did want to thank the collective efforts from both training staffs between the Texans, the Dolphins, and the doctors that were involved handling the situation as they did. It was imperative for him. It just tells you how serious that hit was, that it was imperative that the doctors were also involved outside of just the trainers. Regarding Jaylen Waddle, he did not suffer anything major. There is no surgery-related injury, but he is in question for this week in kind of day-to-day, but avoided anything serious, which leads me to believe don't expect Jaylen Waddle on the field Sunday against the 49ers. And by all accounts at this point, there's no reason to play him at this point of the season with how things kind of unfolded against the Texans. Regarding Bradley Chubb, he said they were going to hold off on Bradley Chubb for a week, and you said that was likely. Do you think this week is likely? You still could wait even beyond. Are there still things you need to see before deciding on Sunday? Mike McDaniel responds, I think the process as we kind of laid it out at the end of last week, it hasn't changed in terms of you go through practice fully, communicating before and after, have an organized plan, and then see where that leaves you through conversation at the end of the week. So that'll be something that we will have on the forefront of our minds, but won't be decided until the end of the week. Word salad, Mike McDaniel. As always, there is zero reason to put Bradley Chubb on the football field for a multitude of reasons. But number one reason is his cap. His injury and how much he's being paid. Rest the man up for 2025. It takes a miracle for this team to even sniff the postseason at this point. I'm not even going to get into how they can get there. It's been posted on online. It's in the newspapers how the Dolphins can get in. You can do the playoff machines. I ran it multiple times. It's slim to none. No reason to play Bradley Chubb at all. Regarding the quarterback play, yesterday on the 3 interceptions, Tua Tagovailoa was targeting Tyreek Hill, and after watching the film, was there any recurring theme or disconnect between the two? Mike McDaniel, of course, being the comedian, you want the good news or the bad news. And then the reporter who asked the question, the bad news first. The bad news first is that they were, in fact, 3 interceptions. That's the bad news. The good news is both Tyreek and Tua have been very accountable. I'm so happy for them. And both say it's their fault. That's what you want. It's the second best to not having the discussion at all because it didn't happen. But I think it's important as you move forward within the NFL season to prepare for the next opponent that, guys, your whole locker room is pointing the thumb, not the finger, that's saying, basically, it's my fault. Terrific. Mike McDaniel also was asked about the ground game going from first in the NFL to 31st. From 5 yards per carry to 3.9 yards per carry, and is Devon Achane still the same player he was last year, as he went from 7.8 yards per carry to 3 yards per carry this year? Is there trouble in the running game the last 5 weeks, mostly the result of blocking that isn't up to the standard? I'm not going to go through the word salad response regarding the run game. I can tell you 100% the problem with the run game this year is that they haven't been able to throw the football down the field consistently. In addition to that, when Austin Jackson went down 5 weeks ago, that's when the Dolphins stopped running the football effectively. Okay? I don't want to say it's all Austin Jackson, but that was the one thing, the one singular thing that changed for this football team on offense is when Austin Jackson went down, the Dolphins went from a top 5 unit through the first, give or take 6-7 weeks of the season. They were top 5 in rush yards per game, and now they have dropped all the way to 31st because they just can't run the ball anymore. That is a product of losing your most effective run blocking offensive lineman, which happened to be Austin Jackson. So now that we are here, where do we go from here? None of these conversations that we can have as a fan base can start having this conversation unless we start with the person in charge, Christopher Grier, who is still employed for the Miami Dolphins. Again, there was conversation, there were articles, Cameron Wolfe was on NFL Network and said it. The belief in the building in 2024 is that this is a pause year. What the hell does a pause year even mean when you're in a window to fight for a division and fight to get to the Super Bowl? Why are you taking a pause year? Well, let's start with roster malpractice from one Christopher Grier. He didn't have the foresight. So we're going to start with foresight when it comes to Chris Grier. He didn't have the foresight to sign Christian Wilkins years ago before his contract was due, while his value was still middle of the pack in the NFL. He was a good, very good football player, but his production and his numbers did not take off until Zach Sealer came into town, and everything changed. Do we miss Christian Wilkins? I say yes. Partially, I think we miss him. I mean, he's been hurt all year in Vegas. So how much can we miss him if he was going to be injured? Who really knows? But hey, injuries, another thing we'll talk about with Chris Grier. He didn't have the foresight or with the wherewithal or at least with a decency to offer a contract to Andrew Van Ginkel, who is having a Pro Bowl, if not close to an All-Pro type season for the Minnesota Vikings, and his former head coach, Brian Flores, who is the defensive coordinator in Minnesota. Robert Hunt, one of the draft picks in 2020, and we'll get through those draft picks here shortly, did not have the wherewithal to sign him before his fourth year. And Robert Hunt was playing very good football. He was solid for the Miami Dolphins. He developed with the Miami Dolphins, and they said goodbye. Brandon Jones, another draft pick. He gets shown the door, not even offering a contract to another draft pick, a homegrown talent. He's performing well with the Broncos. Pause here. Think about that. As an organization in the biggest sport in the United States, you have the balls to say we're going to have a pause year. Pause year means no changes with the people that are in charge. Let's start with the draft classes. Now, can we say that Chris Grier has drafted fairly well? Yeah. I would give him some credit. He's had some good picks. He took over in 2019 as the official general manager. He had the title in 2016. Topic for another day. He took over, drafted Christian Wilkins, let him go. Michael Dieter started for the Washington Commanders at center. Not saying Dieter was a great pick. He was a third-round pick for this team and couldn't figure out how to make it work. Andrew Van Ginkel, don't even get me started here. Isaiah Prince, Chandler Cox, and Myles Gaskin. Gaskin's a backup running back in Minnesota or a practice squad player. Chandler Cox, I don't even think is in the NFL anymore. Isaiah Prince, I think, ended up in Cincinnati, but I don't even think he came to anything. So Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, two good picks out of the 6 that you had in 2019. And then the big trade. The big trade occurred in 2019. The Dolphins had a plethora of draft picks, 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, third-round pick, so on and so forth. We know who the first overall pick at number 5 was Tua Tagovailoa. We can have up and down, conversations regarding Tua Tagovailoa, his play against good teams or bad teams, whatever it is. I still think he's a good quarterback. Austin Jackson has developed nicely. He's your right tackle. Noah Benogany. He was terrible in Miami. He's doing okay in Washington. Not saying great, but he's doing well. Robert Hunt. Let him go. Raekwon Davis. He was shown the door. Brandon Jones. Same thing. 3 players in that draft class was not re-signed to this football team, and I think you could at least say Robert Hunt and Brandon Jones at least should have been re-signed here. Solomon Kinley, not in the NFL, probably ate his way out of it. Jason Strowbridge, I don't know where he's playing. Curtis Weaver, same thing. Blake Ferguson, he's done for the season, probably not coming back to the Dolphins next year, in my opinion. Malcolm Perry, not in the NFL. So look at that. Tua and Austin Jackson are the only 2 football players from that big 2020 draft class that are left on the football team. Benogany was traded prior to the 2023 season. Robert Hunt was shown the door and got a big payday from Carolina. Raekwon Davis signed in Indianapolis. Brandon Jones signed in Denver. 2021, I'd say successful. Jaylen Waddle, stud. Jalen Phillips, stud, when healthy. Javon Holland, fell off the face of the earth this year. Liam Eichenberg, I'll be nice. He sucks. That's about the nicest way I could say it. He sucks. Hunter Long was traded for Jalen Ramsey. Larnell Coleman was a backup. Jared Dokes, not in the NFL right now. Or if he is, he's on a practice squad somewhere. 2022. They didn't have much in regards to draft picks. Channing Tindall, bust. Eric Izakama, can't see the football field. Cameron Good, jury's out. Skylar Thompson, holy shit does he suck. 2023, Cam Smith, absolute bust in the second round. Can't stay healthy. Devon Achane, stud. Elijah Higgins, they dropped him expecting he'd clear waivers, and he had the most waiver claims in a waiver claim period out of any player in NFL history, I believe. That could be an exaggeration, but there were a lot of claims on him, and Ryan Hayes is here as a backup. This year, again, jury's out for these players. Chop Robinson has developed nicely. He's got 5 sacks. He's come on very well. Patrick Paul had a very good showing against the Jets. He had a very good showing against Houston. Maybe they got something here with him at left tackle when he replaces Teron Armstead. Jalen Wright, not getting a lot of love, not getting a lot of touches at the moment. Muhammad Kamara hasn't seen much of the football field at this point. Malik Washington starting to get a little bit more involved now that Odell Beckham is gone. Patrick McMorris, they brought him back from injured reserve. He's a role player right now, potentially a starting safety for this team next year, and Taj Washington was hurt preseason. So what do you think of all that? What do you think of all those draft picks? Some good, some bad, right? We can all agree on that. Beyond the draft, what the hell was the roster construction like this year? Aging veteran players? They let go of youth for aging veteran players. Now, that's not a slight against Calais Campbell. He's been fantastic for the Miami Dolphins. They signed Benito Jones, Anthony Walker Jr., Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, Odell Beckham Jr. What the hell? We went from being one of the youngest teams in the NFL to one of the oldest, and the age is showing with some of these players. Not Calais Campbell. He's a unicorn. Jordan Poyer stinks. Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't worth a damn. Just mismanagement. Time after time after time. So what does Christopher Grier do to make sure that he stays in power for the Miami Dolphins? Well, you hand out big contracts. You hand one out to Tua Tagovailoa, which at the time, and I still believe there's some deserving there. For the amount of money guaranteed, now that's up for full debate. But the market is the market. That's all I'll say. Jalen Ramsey got a big extension, and Tyreek Hill got his extension. The Miami Dolphins have $3.5 million of cap space remaining for 2024. That money can be carried over into 2025, and that's what I really want to get into here for 2025 cap perspective. As of today, the Miami Dolphins have an effective cap space of negative $13.579 million. It's effective cap space. They have $257 million in active cap spending and a total dead cap of $17.1 million. Now, it's nowhere near the most in the NFL in that regards, but it's a pretty high number. Just wait till the Browns wait till the Browns cut Deshaun Watson, then we'll see some real dead cap. Anyway, what are the Dolphins going to do? What are they going to change going into 2025 in a year where everything's on the line for the coach, for the quarterback, for the star players on this football team? Sans Jaylen Waddle and Chop Robinson. You get the picture. So what do? With minimal cap space? Well, how do you get cap space in the NFL nowadays? Simple restructures. So anyone who's thinking, hey, let's move on from the quarterback, hit the pause button. It's $86 million in dead cap if he was released. If he was released, it's $86 million by March 14th. If they trade him, if someone wants to take that contract on, they eat $55 million in dead cap. It's not happening. Jalen Ramsey is about $63 million in dead cap. And Tyreek Hill is about $33 million. Off the top of my head, I would say that's about $170, $180 million in dead cap. You cannot function in the NFL with that much dead cap in one season. So you're not moving on from these guys. You're just not. So after tinkering with the numbers, tinkering with simple restructures, potential contract extensions for deserving players, there's not many on this current roster, but there's a few guys you can give extensions to, like Zach Sealer. Extend him again. Give him a little bit of a pay raise. Why not? The guy deserves it. Dolphins would have about 75 to 85 million in cap space. What do they need? Where to begin? What were the warts that just glared at you in the Houston game? Well, how about 2 starting offensive guards? How about 2 backup tackles? How about a capable backup quarterback, because your quarterback 1 currently still doesn't know how to protect himself and still dives head first, which is what caused the season to go off the rails to begin with in week 2. Find me a capable backup quarterback, because the other guys stunk, making the team go 1-3 without the starting quarterback there. You need wide receiver depth. You need wide receiver 3, 4, and 5. Or 4, 5, and 6 if you want to have Malik Washington as your 3. You need 3 wide receivers. That whole room it's gone. Craycraft's only on a 1-year deal. He's over 30. He's brought nothing to the table this year. Time to move on. You need another tight end. You need someone that's not Durham Smythe or Julian Hill. You're keeping Jonnu Smith. It's not even up for debate. And you need another running back behind Achane and Jaylen Wright. What's that, 8, 9 players? Just on offense. Defensively, you got to replace Calais Campbell. Most likely he's retiring. You got to get a more serviceable defensive tackle or nose tackle. You got to get a couple linebackers. You have to get corner depth. And you have to replace almost the entire safety room with maybe $80 to $85 million of available cap space. Do we trust Chris Grier to make these decisions? The answer that you should be yelling in your car is emphatically no. But there will be no change. So where do we go from here? To quote my friends here on the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network, where do we go from here? Is to 2025 with no changes. The same person who's put us in this purgatory is still calling the shots. It will be the same old Dolphins. Till things change, things will stay the same. That will do it for today's show. Thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to go to DolphinsTalk.com each and every day for all the latest Miami Dolphins news and information. We will have shows all week leading up to the now really uneventful 49ers game, which I had circled as one of the biggest games of the year. That game at 4:25. They kept it in that time slot. Be sure to follow me on social media platforms at DolphinsTalkTom. Follow the main account at DolphinsTalk. And we'll talk to you again after a while. Fins up. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. Be sure to visit DolphinsTalk.com every day for all of your latest Miami Dolphins news.